Welcome back everyone. My name is Sagar and we are back here with another video. So this is the lecture number 17 of our Java and DSA course. And from the previous video we learned about basics of arrays. So today in this video we are going to cover some basic questions so that you will be comfortable working with arrays. So without making any further ado, let's get started. So first of all, let me create a new Java class. This is lecture number 17. We have to make it here. And first of all, in our previous video I forgot one thing, that we can initialize our array in one line. What we were doing is, you can see here, this is integer array and here are its name, and the new integer array, and here we have to define its size. So suppose its size is here 3. So after that, what we were doing, if we have to modify some of its element, then we were doing it like this. So that means its first element is gonna be something, and second element, and then third element. You know about indexing, right? Second index, so it is third element. So we were doing it like this. We were modifying every element in every single line. But what if we already have some values and we have to directly put it in our array? So instead of doing it like this, we can do it like this. Here suppose our values were 1, 3 and 5. So this is also a valid syntax. So here what we are doing, we are directly putting our values in our array, and we don't even need to define our size. So this can be also a very helpful thing if you want to debug your code and you already know your values. So you can put as many values as you want, and you are good to go. So this was also a valid syntax, and after that let's move to our questions. So before moving to our questions, first let me tell you how you can take some array as input. So basically what values we want in our array, there is a size of array, and then there is some values according to our size. If our size is 3, then we want 3 values. So then values from 1 to our size. So first of all, we don't know how many total values are there. There are total of 1 to size values. They can vary. So we have to use here a loop because there are multiple values that we have to take from our input, and there is a constant size. There is only one value for size. So first of all, let me also write some strings here. Enter the size. So after that, we have to take our size from input. First of all, create a scanner object. And after that, after this line, we have to take our size integer input, size equal to sc dot next int, and after that we have to use a loop here for our integer input, int I equals to 0, because there is 0 base indexing in our array. And yeah, one thing, before doing this loop, we have to also initialize our array with this size. So this is going to be integer array arr, and its size is this size, which we are taking from integer input. And after that we are creating that loop to fill our all the values. So this will be our index. So indexes are 0 from 0 to I should be less than size. So it will be 0 to n minus 1, here size minus 1. I is less than size, so maximum value of I can be size minus 1. And I hope you got this. So after that we have to fill all the values. So I equal to sc dot next int. So I will also write here some string as out, enter values. We have to enter size number of values. If size is 5, then we have to enter 5 values. And after that our array is filled now. So let us just quickly verify that. I will write here values in array r, and then we will just use here a for each loop, and I from arr, and then print this I. So I will be here our element from array, and I will also use here a space. And let's check it now. So first of all we have to enter the size, and the size can be suppose 5, and then we have to enter here 5 values. So first 1, second 3, and some random values. So after that press enter, and you can see values in our array are 137, 24, 62. So that is good. So we don't need to print our values. So we have taken now integer array from our input, and now let's move to our questions. So our question is get minimum value from our array. So how can we get minimum value from array? We know that our array is filled with some values, that is from integer input, and there are total of n values, which is equal to this size, which is also from integer input. So what we can do, we can check all the values from our array, and we can store it in some variable which is called as minimum value. So first I will create this int minimum. So in this we will store our minimum value from our array, and for that we have to check all the values from our array. And how can we check all the values? Using a for loop. So we can just use a simple for loop, and we can also use here a for each loop. So it will be ele from our arr. So this ele will be itself the value from our array. So we have to check whether it is the smallest value or not. So if it is, then we will store it in our minimum variable, or we can just call it our answer. So if it is the smallest value, then we will store it in our answer. So how can we check if it is the smallest value or not? We will check it with the previous smallest value. So suppose for an example, there are values like 4, 3 and 0. So first of all we are here. So first we will check this 4. So this 4 is the smallest value or not? But currently we don't have any value, so we will suppose this is our smallest value. So here we will write our smallest value. So for now 4 is our smallest value, and after that we will move ahead to 3. So we will check now, is this 3 is the smallest value or not? So how can we check? We will compare this 3 with our previously smallest value. So 4 and 3, which is smaller? 3 is smaller, so we will change it to 3. So now 3 is our smallest value, and after that we will again move ahead. So we are now on 0. So now we will check again if 0 is our smallest value or not. And how are we checking? We are comparing this element with our previously smallest value. So 3 or 0, which is smaller? Our 0 is smaller, so we will store this 0 in our answer. So at last 0 is our answer, and we will just print it as out minimum value is, what is minimum value? Our answer. So plus this answer integer. And okay, there is an error, and that is because variable answer might not have been initialized. So first we have to initialize our answer, because it might be a possibility that we are not iterating in this array. That is, it might have 0 value, so this answer is never initialized. If we want to print something, if we want to modify something, if we want to use something, then first we have to initialize it. And how can we initialize it? Suppose I am initializing it with some large value. So then we will check if this value, this 4, is smaller than this large value. If yes, in our case it is yes, so this is something called 1,000,000, 1,000, I don't know, but we will initialize with some greater value. So every time we are checking if our current element is smaller than this, smaller than our answer, so we will modify our answer to this current element. So I will write here current element. So this is our current element, and first we have to store some large value. And how can we store large value? We can use this integer dot max value. Now what is this? Let me check it here. You can see here, but what is that? You can just use here control and then left click, and you will be here. So there is a this public static final int max value. So here you can see one thing, we don't know what is this. Okay, and here you can see a constant holding the maximum value an integer can have, 2 to the power 31 minus 1. So that means there is some integer class, you can see here integer.java, and there is something here constant. This max value is from our integer class, and it is some constant value. And what is its value? It is storing the maximum value of integer that is possible, and that is 2 to the power 31 minus 1. This is the maximum integer value possible. So this max value is storing 2 to the power 31 minus 1. so we can use it here. So the largest value possible for an integer is this integer, though this is an integer class and we are using maximum value from our integer class, that is I will write here 2 to the power 31 minus 1. So there is some very large value and we are storing it in our answer and we will check it. So there is some very large value and we will check it. If our current element is smaller than this large value, so we will update our answer to 4, and after that again check if 3 is smaller than 4, so we will update it. If 0 is less than 3, then we will again update it. So we have to just check if our current element is less than our previous answer. So our answer was storing the minimum value and currently it is 2 to the power 31 minus 1. So in our case current element is less than maximum value because it can't be it can be greater than maximum value because it is the limit. So if our current element is less than value, then we have to update our answer. So if our current element is less than answer, then our answer will be updated to this current element. And after that we will check further. So it was first some large value and first our value is 4. So 4 is less than this. So we will update it. And after that we have 3. So 3 is less than 4. So we will again update it. And after that we have 0. So 0 is still less than 3 and we will again update it. So it will be at last 0, and we are just printing our smallest value. Minimum value in our array is this. So let us run it now. So enter the size. Our array size is 5 and now we have to enter 5 values. So suppose some random values we don't know, and that is it. So last value here, smallest value is 4 and I will just enter it. So minimum value is 4 and our program is good. So now let us check for negative cases. Suppose it is 3 and I am using here negative values. So first is 0, second is 1, third is minus 13, and the answer is still correct. Minimum value is minus 13. And suppose somehow I am entering this minus 1 size. So is that possible? I will enter here and you can see here there is an error, and that is saying this is an exception. Remember in our previous video we also had an exception that was saying array index out of bound exception, and here it is in our main method, and that is negative array size exception. So this is also an exception. Our array size cannot be negative, and here it is saying create breakpoint. This is causing the exception. -1 array size is our exception and it is in line number 12, and so that is what we can do. So suppose our array size is 2 and that, so our answer is correct. And how can we find the maximum value from our array? So this is another part of our problem. We have to find minimum and then maximum. So can we do here both? Yes. We will write here maximum and it will be minimum. So first we will see. So I will write here minimum. So minimum value from our array will be stored in this variable name. And after that, what about maximum value? We will use the exact same way. First, we will store a very small value. So suppose minus 99999. So there will be very small value, and we will check with every element. If this value is greater than this, yes, obviously, because it is suppose minus infinity, and 0 is even greater than this, and 4 is obviously greater than this. So suppose for another example, 0, 2 and 9. So 0 is greater than minus infinity, yes, so we will update it. And after that we have 2, so 2 is greater than 0, yes, we will again update it. If we have 9, so 9 is greater than 2, yes, so we will again update it to 9. So we were checking every element with this. So this is our maximum variable. So first we have to initialize it with some very small negative value, or we can say minus infinity, and it is this integer class, same integer class, and here minimum value. So this value stores 2 to the power 31 minus 2 to the power 31. So let me just check in it, control and left click, and you can see it is the same integer class, and here you can see a constant holding the minimum value an integer can have, and it is minus 2 to the power 31. So there is also a constant from our integer class that is holding the minimum value from our integer. So this is minimum possible value from integers, and that is 2 to the power 31 minus. So we have to do the same with our maximum. So if our current element is greater than our maximum, so we got a new maximum value. So our maximum variable will be current element. So we are checking it for every element. If our current element is greater, then we are updating it. So 0 is greater, then we are updating it. 2 is greater than 0, so we will again update. 9 is greater than 2, so we will again update. And at last, after this loop, we have to print it as out maximum value is, and here this max variable name, and let's check it now. So array size is 6, and I will add some values, 5 and 6. Let's check it. Maximum value is 74492, it is there, and minimum value is 0. And suppose our maximum and minimum is equal. So suppose there is only one value and that value is 0. So maximum value is 0 and minimum value is also 0. So this program is good. And I hope now you got this thing, how we can initialize them with the maximum value possible and minimum value possible, and how can we iterate and check every element with these variables. So I think this is clear now, and I will comment it. And after that, let's move to our second question. So this was our question number 1. And our second question is get average from our array. So how can we get average from our array? So first of all, what is average? So if we have value 2 and 3, so what is the average? Average can be, average is here 2.5, but how can we calculate it? So average is 2 plus 3. So sum of all the values, we can say if we have more values, and then divide by total number of values. Number of values. So in our case, 2 plus 3, here 2 plus 3 is 5, and then we have to divide it with total number of values. So total values are here 2, and 5 by 2 is 2.5. So we already know that what is the average of some values. But how can we find average of our array? So for this, we have to just normally iterate over the array and everything is good. So we have to just get all the values. So ELE from our ARR, and we have to store it in some variable. So first we have to store some sum, and then we also have this size of array. So we will just directly use it, and our final average will be, I will write it here. So our average value will be sum divided by size. So I am calculating this average after our loop, because first I have to find our sum from array, and sum can start from 0 and there is no problem with it. So what I have to do, sum plus equal to our current element, and that is very basic thing we learned in our loop videos. So after getting our average value, I will print it average from array, and let's check it now. So array size is 2 and values are 2 and 3. So average is 2. Okay, we are using here this integer average, and we want here double, or you can also use here float. And for that we also want our sum to be a double value, so that double by integer can be double, and integer by integer is always integer. So we want one of the values to be double. So let's check it. For size 2, values are 2 3, and average is 2.5. Yeah, so that was very quick, and this is a very basic thing we already learned in our loop videos. If you just want the sum of whole array, then you can directly use this. You can use a for each loop, or you can just normally use a for loop, where you can get index from 0 to size -1. That is also similar thing. So in this way you can create a variable and add every element in it, so you will find the sum. And the same for multiplication, you can create a variable and then multiply every element in that variable, and you will get the multiplication of all the elements from array. So that was a very quick program, and after that let's move to our next question, and that is find index of element. So what is the index of some element? So suppose we have some values 2 3 4. So we know this 2 is on 0th index, so because there is 0 base indexing, if you don't know, check out our previous video. And so this 2 is on 0th index, and this 3 is on our first index, and this 4 is on our second index. So in this problem we will be given some element. So suppose there will be 3, and we have to find the index of 3 in our array. So we will check every element. If this is 3, if this is 3, if this is 3, and if it is 3, then we will simply return the index. So we will just use a normal loop. So for first we have to get this element. So int, I will call it a target. So we have to find the index of our target element, and after that we have to iterate over our array. So indexes will be 0 to size and I plus plus. So we will check if our current element, how can we get our current element? ARR I. So using this we can get element from our array. So this will be our ith element, and we will check it. If it is target, then we will just return our index, and by returning I have to say we will just store it in some variable. I will call it answer, so it can be 0. And if our current element is equal to our target, this is double equals to. If you don't know, check out our operators video, and all videos are there in the playlist, and you can get it from the description. So if our current element is equal to target, then we will store this index. So index is here I. Here we are using this I to represent our index, and this ARR, and then this square bracket and I. So this means our element, and this I just represent our index. So this I is index, and we have to store it. And after that we have to print it. So index is this answer, and let's check it now. So size is 3, and values are 1 3 and 4. And after that, okay, I will also write it this. We have to now take our target as out, enter the target. So we will also write it here, so that we will know where we are in our input. Stop and rerun. So size of the array will be 3 and 1 4 5, and we have to find where is 4. So what is the index of 4? And the index is 1, because there is 0 base indexing. This is on 0th index, 4 is on first index. So we are returning index is 1, and that is good. But let us check for some another example. Suppose size is 3 and elements are 1 4 and 8, and we have to find the index of 9. But there is no 9 in our array. So what will be the output? The index is 0. What was that? On 0th index we have 1, and we are checking for 9. So that simply means our output is wrong. And let me debug it. So what is going on here? You can see here our answer is 0, and we are only updating our answer when we got our target. So if no element is equal to target, so we will not enter in this block, and we will never update our answer, and our answer will be always 0, and we are just printing 0, which was our default value. So how can we modify our code if we don't have some target in our array? So what I will do, I will do this. So why this -1? You can just use here any value which is not the index from our array. You can use here size and size plus 1, any value which is greater than size, or any value which is less than 0, because indexes in our array is from 0 to size -1. So I am just using here -1, and if there is no element in our array, if there is no target in our array, so this answer will be -1. even after iterating over the loop. And let us check it. So input is 3 1 4 3, and if we want to check for 5, and index is -1. So after this we know that if there is -1 index, that means this element is not present in our array, and we can just use this. After iterating our loop, I will write here if our answer equal to -1. So that means even after iterating over the array, our answer is still -1, and -1 means there is no value which is equal to our target. So what I will do, I will just print not present in the array, and else if there is some value in our answer, then we will just print that value. So index is this, and now let us check it again. So if our array is -1, our answer is -1, then we are printing not present in the array. Okay, so if the size is 3 1 4 5, and if we want to check for 9, then not present in the array. So this code is good now. एंड हाँ, ये वाला केस भी देखते हैं. सो इफ देर इज अ केस वेयर देर आर मल्टीपल वैल्यूज विच आर इक्वल टू आवर टारगेट, सो व्हाट इंडेक्स विल बी रिटर्न. लेट अस चेक फॉर इट. So if size is 3 and all the values are 4 and we have to check for 4, so what is the index of 4? It is returning 2, and let us check it. Why? Because here we are iterating in our loop. We are iterating over all the values from our array. So if we get our current value equal to target, then we will update our answer. So at first, here you can see our value is 4 and our target is also 4. So at first our index will be equal to 0, and after that, after another iteration, our I will be 1 and our second element is also 4. So second element is equal to target. So our answer will be again updated, and then answer will be equal to 1. And again after another iteration, I will be equal to 2, and our current element is again equal to our target. You can see here index is 2 and our current element is equal to what is our target. So index is 2, and we are just again updating our answer to 2. So at last we are updating the last index of our element. So let us check for another case. So suppose value is here 4 and 2 3 5 and again 2. So if we want to check for 2, so 2 is here present on 0th index and also on 0 1 2 third index. So according to our code, we are iterating over whole array and we are returning the last value, last index, which is equal to 0 1 2 3. So first index, which is equal to our 2, is 0, and last index, which is equal to our target, is 3. So we will return 3, and you can see 3. So in this code, we are iterating over whole array, and at last we are returning the last index of our target. Where is the last index of our target? So last index of 2 is this 3. And what if you want the first occurrence of your target? So what you can do? So how can you modify your code? So you can see once you go to your target, so this is the first occurrence, then you will just break out of your loop. Then you don't need to check for further values. So what you can do, if your element is equal to target, then you can just break. Then you don't need to check for further values. So this element is equal to target and index is 0. So then you will break. Then you will not check for further values. So now your answer will be 0 for the same input. So size was 4, 2, 3, 5 and 2, and you want to check for 2, and now it will return a 0 because the first occurrence of your target is 0 and the last occurrence, index of last occurrence is 3. So index of first occurrence is 0, and that is good. So now I think you got this, and after that let's move to our next question, which is question number 4. I will comment this. So Q4, and that is count smaller elements on left. So what is this? So let me take an example. So suppose there are values 9 3 and 4 and 0, 4 and 3. So if this is our example, how can we calculate count small elements on left? So what does that mean? So this question first of all can be of two types. First we are given, first type can be, we will be given some element, so given some target that is present in our array. So there will be some target that is definitely present in our array, and we have to find the elements which are smaller on its left. So suppose we are given 4 and we have to find number of elements which are smaller than that. So if we are given 4, then we have to count the number of elements which are on its left and which are smaller than that. So if our number is 4, and then we have to check for elements which are on its left. So from left of 4 there is 3 and there is this 0, and these both values are less than 4. So total count is 2 which are less than 4 and are on its left. So suppose there is some another example. Suppose there is this 10 and 0, and if the given target is same, if we are given the target is 4, then again we have to count the smaller elements then are on its left. So what we can do, first we will iterate over the array and we will get the index of 4, and we will start checking from the next index. So in our case here the index of 4 is 1, and we will start checking from the second index. So from second to our last index. So from second to our last index is size minus 1. So what is the second index? Suppose, let me generalize this. Suppose the index of this target is I. So we have to check from I plus 1. So if the index of this target is I, then we have to check for left elements, and left elements will start from I plus 1 index. So from I plus 1 to our size minus 1, that is our last index. So this is a general range that we have to check for any element. So if our given target is 4, then we will start from I plus 1, that is this. So we have to check all three values. And what we have to check? Smaller elements ka count. So we have to count all the smaller elements that are less than 4. So 3 is less than 4, so our count is 1. Is 10 is less than 4? No, it is not. So our count will be same. Is 0 is less than 4? Yes, 0 is less than 4. So we will increase our count. So every time we are getting a smaller element, we are increasing our count. So I have to write this: if our element is smaller than target, so we will increase our count. So count plus plus. So this is the condition that we want to write, and this code is only for our first case. Next I will tell you about the second case. What is the second type of this problem? So first I will write the code for this. So we will get a target from our input, and I will also write here this, and after that first of all we have to find the index of this element. So how can we find the index? So index will start from -1. We don't need to initialize the index with -1 because it is guaranteed that elements should be present in our array. So we can start it with 0 and then we have to update it. So it can be anything at start. So we have to iterate over the array to get the index. So and I should be less than size, and we are using the same thing. You can see here as this we have to get the index. So if our arr I equal to this target, then we got the index, and index equal to I, and then we will break. So after this loop we have the index of our target, and after that what we are doing, we have to start iterating from index plus 1 to our last index. So I will do the same. We will start iterating from I will use a loop, and our index will be, I will use here I for, this was our I plus 1, that means index of our target plus 1. So index of our target is stored in this index. So index plus 1, don't get confused in this I and index. This is their index, index of our target. So index of our target, and after that we have started iterating from index plus 1 to our last index, and that is less than size and I plus plus. And what we have to count, we will also create a count variable that will be 0, and we have to check every time. If our current element is less than target, then we have to increase the count. So how can we get the current element? ARR I. So if this element is less than our target, then we have to increase the count plus plus, and after this loop we just have to print the value. So this is as simple. So smaller values, and I will use here count. So using this loop we are getting the index of our target as we were doing in our previous question. You can see here we are just getting the index of our element, and after this loop we are using another loop to iterate from I plus 1, that is index plus 1, to our last index to get all the values from our left side. And after that we have to just check the count for the smaller elements. So we are just using this condition. If our current element is less than target, then that means it is a smaller element, and we have to count the smaller elements, so our count will be increased. So let's check it now. So I will just use the same example. So size is here 5, and values are 9, 4, 3, 10, and 0. And if our target is 4, then how many smaller values are there? So 3 and 0. So there is only two smaller values, and smaller values are 2. So that is a good program. So I think now you got this thing, how we can get the index of element, and how can we use some another loop to get all the smaller values. So this was the first part, and I will comment it now. So this was the first part of this problem number 4, and what about the second part? So second part is the same. We have to count the smaller values, count smaller values on left, but this time for every value. Suppose we are taking the same example. So if this is our example, so we have to count the smaller elements on left for every single value. So first of all, for 9, how many smaller elements are there on left? 4 is smaller, 3 is smaller, and 0 is smaller. So count will be 3. And for 4, 3 and 0 are smaller. So count will be 2. And for 3, only 0 is smaller, that is on left. So for 3, there is 0. And for 10, there is this 0 again. So 0 is smaller. And for 0, how many values are there in left? So there is no value in left. So count of smaller elements will be 0. So we have to print this, and this is also an array, or you can just directly print all the elements one by one, or you can just use an array. So that's totally up to you. We will just print all the values one by one. So first we will check for 9. So let me delete it. So what we have to do, first we have to check for 9 how many smaller values are there. So for 9 we have to check for all these. So for 9, what is our index? Our index is 0, and we will start checking from 1 to our size minus 1. So for 0, we have to check from 1 to size minus 1. That is from, if this index is I, then we have to check from I plus 1. So for index 0, we will start a loop, that is this same loop, this. So we will start here another loop, which will return us the count of all the smaller elements, and we will just print it. And after that we have this one. So 1 is the index of next element. So again we will check using this. So we have to do the same thing, minus 1 to size minus 1, I plus 1 to size minus 1. So if this index is I, so if this index is I, then we have to check for I plus 1 to size minus 1, and we have to check for every element. We have to check for all the elements. So we will start a outer loop for it. So there will be nested loops. So first we will check for all the elements 0 to size and I plus plus. So using this we will get our target. So int target from current element. So at first this 9 will be our target, and after next iteration 4 will be our target, and after next we will have 3, then 10, then 0. So we are using this loop to get our target, and after that we have to use the same thing, I plus 1 to size minus 1. So we will just use this loop. So I will just use it from here. So index plus 1. So I will use here j, because we can't just use same name variables, j. So we are getting target from this outer loop. And what is this index? So this index is here I. You can clearly see this line. What is the index of our target? This I. So we have to just use here I plus 1, that is index plus 1. And we are just using here another variable name because we can't just copy names. So that is the same formula, same loop, count smaller on left for target. And we have to also create a count equal to 0. And after this loop, after our nested loop, we have to print our value. So I will write here for our target smaller values are, then I will print here count. So for target, so target is first this 9, then 4, then 3. So our target will be also changed, and after this smaller values are this count. So we are counting this using this nested loop. So there is nested loop. And so suppose I am taking that same example. So size is 5, and values are 9, 4, 3, 10, and 0. And you can see here for 9 smaller values are 3. For 9 there is 4, 3, and 0. So smaller values are 3. And for 4 there is 3 and 0. So smaller count are 2. So I have to write here count. And after that for 3 we have to check for only 10 and 0. So 0 is smaller, so count is 1. And for 10 there is 0, so count is 1. And for 0 there is no value on left, so there we have 0 smaller values. So that was a very cool program to get all the smaller values from our array. And let me tell you, this is a very famous question, and this is asked in Google interviews. यकीन नहीं हो रहा, go check out on every single coding platform. This question will be definitely there. तो इसका मतलब क्या है, हम अब गूगल के क्वेश्चन भी सॉल्व करने लगे, और वो इतने आसान थे। क्वेश्चन तो चलो ये आसान था मान लिया, बट ये डायरेक्टली थोड़ी पूछेंगे गूगल में, कुछ मॉडिफाई करके ही आएगा ना। एंड व्हाट वाज द मॉडिफिकेशन फॉर दिस क्वेश्चन? वी कैन से इट मॉडिफिकेशन, but we call it as optimization. Now optimization means we have to improve our code on the basis of time and space. Now what is this time and space? Time is basically the total time our program take to execute. But we can clearly see here our program is just executed within seconds. It might be taking 0.0001 millisecond to execute. Yes, you are right, but it can vary according to size of your array. And we can't just say my program is taking 0 millisecond, 0.1 millisecond. We have to generalize the things. And that is where the concept of space complexity and time complexity come in. Time complexity doesn't mean that my program is taking 0.1 millisecond, 0.01 millisecond. That is not the point. We have to generalize the thing. And we will be learning about that general thing in our upcoming videos. And that is called as time complexity. So we will just learn about all the things, what is time complexity, space complexity, and how you can count space and time complexity of your algorithm and how you can optimize them. So ये क्वेश्चन तो सोल्व कर लिया. नाउ वी जस्ट हैव टू राइट सम ऑप्टिमाइज कोड. एंड मान लो कि आपने गूगल का क्वेश्चन सोल्व कर लिया. We will definitely do this question again in our upcoming videos, and we will try to optimize it so that you can clear your Google interviews. But for now you don't have to optimize your code, you just have to stick with the logic and you have to just implement your code. So these are the 4 questions that we did today, and I hope now you are comfortable with arrays. And in our upcoming videos we will be covering multi-dimensional arrays, and after that their questions. So अब थोड़ा DSA कोर्स ने पेस पकड़ लिया है, and you have to start practicing. And now it is time for practice problem. So today in your task 17, what you have to do, first take your integer input. So as we were doing this, so first this size input and then all the elements from our input, and you have to fill the array, and after that print all the greater elements on right of every element. So you can see here this is a very similar question to this. Here we were printing count smaller values on left, and here in our task we have to count the greater elements on right. So this is a very similar question and the code will be also similar. So you have to just do the thing and just share your code in the comment section, and you will get a huge shout out in the upcoming video if your code is right. So that is it for today, everyone. If this video is helpful, go hit the like button and also subscribe to our channel. And video अच्छा लगा हो तो like जरूर करना. And thank you for watching.